Hello, hi, this is Joe again, and today I'm going to explain to you a very technical topic which is known as a HDB buying timeline. So from my own personal experience, there's a few clients who actually came to me and actually they was thinking that the whole process can be completed within a few weeks or even 1 month or 2 months. Okay, the true fact is it will take longer than that, and some of my cases actually went as long as even 7 to 9 months. So do stay tuned to the end of the video so that I can walk you through the entire process. So I'm going to share my screen, and basically what you're going to see over here, right, is the entire process of this HDB timeline. So you will notice that I'll be using a red marker to indicate at every point that we are actually going through. So the first step itself is basically option to purchase, OTP, which is the short form. So before entering OTP, there's two important things to take note. The first thing is to do an intent to buy. Intent to buy can be done by the HDB resale portal. It's a compulsory step. So from my own personal experience, okay, there's buyer who actually wanted to do it on the last minute, and due to some technical error either from the HDB side or some issues from their own side, then end up the intent to buy cannot be done. So and in the end they cannot go into OTP, because without this intent to buy, the whole process actually cannot go through. When you do the resale application, the whole thing will jam up. Okay, so do take note, this intent to buy is very important. So the second thing, okay, is known as the buyer who is taking a loan. Okay, if you are using a HDB loan, basically you have to make sure that your HLE is ready before you enter OTP. If your HLE comes out after OTP, it cannot be used. The number two thing is, if you are using a bank loan, okay, please do contact the bank or the banker to do a in-principle approval. So this in-principle approval will give you an assessment of how much is your maximum loan. Okay, in case you don't have any banker, you can reach out to me. I can send you some contacts so that you can contact them directly. Okay. So as we enter OTP, of course, there's two things that we're going to negotiate with the seller, apart from the number one thing, which is known as the price. Okay, number two thing is actually known as terms and conditions. So what is this terms and condition? I will explain it along in the later part of the video. It's something that is very important. Okay, so we talk about once price, terms and condition has been so-called negotiated with the seller side, right? Meaning to say both sides is already come to a agreement. Okay, we need to pay the seller auction fees. These auction fees can range from between $1 to 1,000. Okay, so with this OTP granted, the buyer can actually proceed to apply for this thing known as a valuation. Okay, so valuation itself is basically compulsory for two types of buyer. Is if you are taking a loan, you definitely need to have a valuation report. Or if you're using CPF, you definitely need to have a valuation report. So for which type of buyer actually don't need valuation report is mainly for buyers who is using full cash to actually pay for the entire transaction. Okay, so valuation itself will take between usually 3 to 7 days to be out. From my own previous experience, if there's no valuable being activated, it means HDB match the valuation against the selling price. If there is a valuer which is activated, it will depend on how the valuer assess actually the property itself. Okay, so once the valuation is out, okay, if the buyer is using a HDB loan, if he's comfortable, he can proceed to actually exercise the OTP, which is known as a stage 2. Okay, if he's using a bank loan, once the valuation is out, then he can proceed to actually submit this report and all the necessary documents to the bank to process the loan. Okay, so OTP, to exercise OTP, the buyer is given a 3 calendar weeks to do so. Of course, the buyer can choose to exercise any point of time within these 3 weeks once the loan is actually ready. So what happens is, as a buyer, the moment you pay these auction fees, okay, within these 21 days, if for any reason you decide to back out of the deal, your deposit will be forfeited by the seller. Okay, and then once the buyer exercises the OTP, you are legally binded. Okay, so for the seller himself, okay, once he granted OTP, okay, basically he's legally binded. He cannot say he don't want to sell to you anymore. Okay, so when we go to the after exercising, okay, we go to the third stage, which is known as a resale application. So you will notice that there is a gap between exercise and resale application. On the page 4 of the option to purchase, okay, page 4, there's a blank for you all to fill in. So this is part of what I mean by the terms and condition. So usually if both the buyer and seller is a straightforward case, usually we will submit it after the option has been exercised. However, if there's any special request from either the buyer or seller side, okay, then we will so-called delay the resale application. There's no fixed number for this, okay, because on the market there's some people who say standard 30 days. There's no standard for this. It can be 7 days, 15 days, 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, whichever figures you want to put in. But do take note, it also cannot be too long, because during the resale application, either the HLE, the letter of offer, and the valuation report must be still valid at the point of time. Do take note of this. Okay, so resale application, after the resale application, right, HDB in the back end, they will do all the processing, etc., to vet through all the buyer's eligibility, seller's eligibility based on both parties' submission. Then they will check through, make sure everything is okay. Then they will give the step number 4, which is known as acceptance. Okay, so the tricky part in today's context is from resale application to acceptance, we do not know how fast HDB process this portion. Okay, the faster I saw the resale application being accepted is within a week. The longest I saw is 4 weeks plus. Of course, personally, when I spoke to some of my colleagues, they even have cases where even take up to 5-6 weeks. I have no idea what happened, but if in case your application they doesn't give you a date after 4 weeks, I think you should start to actually reach out to HDB. Okay, so by default, from acceptance to completion, okay, it will be a 8 weeks period by default. Okay, so which is known as the step 5 completion itself. So far, I hope everything is good. If it's confusing, you can feel free to actually press, go back to the front and re-watch again, because all these are very technical terms. Okay, because I've been through so many times, that's why to me it's something at my fingertip. But of course, to a first timer, to a layman, is something which can be quite confusing. Okay, so if you notice, I even have a step 6 here, which is known as a takeover. So in most of the case, in a straightforward transaction, the buyer will actually take possession of the house during the completion, meaning instead you take the key and it becomes the legal owner. So in some of the cases, actually the seller asks for this thing called a extension. Okay, extension can be up to a period of maximum 3 months. Okay, and then what happens is if this is part of the terms and conditions that I reversed in the earlier part. So the 2 terms and conditions, okay, take note, is basically the resale application, exercise date to resale application, how many days to do, and second thing is how long is the extension, if any. Okay, so of course now we go back to the earlier stage, between stage 4 and stage 5. Okay, from acceptance, okay, there will still be some things to do. So you notice that over here I will indicate a 4.1, which is known as the endorsed document. So during this period, okay, the HDB will send a message to both the buyer and seller to trigger them to go to HDB portal to actually endorse the documents that the HDB has prepared. Basically, all these documents is something like a financial info or their own info, etc. So just to verify that everything is correct. So what happened is a tip for buyer who is using a PHG, which is known as a proximity housing grant, right? Usually people buy near parents, for example. So the parents will also need to endorse these documents as well. So do bear in mind, if your parents don't have SingPass, make sure to get it ready. So after endorsement, after the endorsement, the next step will be 4.2, where they will be actually asked to trigger to pay some fees. So it can be fees like legal fees, caveat fees, etc. Okay, so after paying of the fees, of course the fees is to be paid online, okay, and then after the fees is being paid, it will lead you to a stage 4.3, which is known as a approval stage. So approval stage means at this point of time, I will say that the whole entire process is 99.9% settled already, only left completion. Okay, so with this, actually I have come to an end, okay, of the entire actually HDB buying timeline. Do feel free to reach out to me if you need any, if there's any part that you need me to clarify to you. And please do help me to actually do a like if you think this sharing is useful, and do subscribe to my channel, because moving ahead, I'll be covering topics like even private timeline, BUC timeline. BUC refers to building under construction, especially for new ECs, new private condos. And I will also be sharing topics like a back-to-back deal. So for example, today if you are selling and you are buying, so how do we actually plan the timeline along the way? Because all these are very technical things. So do stay tuned, do remember to subscribe to my channel so that you'll be triggered when the new topic is ready. So thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.